We want to welcome all participants in this Capital Markets Day. This is the first one for Fram after going public, and we want to take this opportunity to present a little bit what has been done in the company so far. And in particular, since we have recently celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the Venture Builder, our new business division in the group, we want to go into depth about the companies that we have initiated and start to build in the Venture Builder during this Capital Markets Day. So, with the listing of Fram in the end of 2017, we became the first Vietnamese company to ever go public on Nasdaq. And so far it's been a good journey for shareholders. The share price is up some 340% since the listing, and we hope to continue on that journey together with current and future shareholders. Fram is, as we mentioned before, really about two separate business units. It's about the standing teams. That's what we call our IT development division. And it's about the Venture Builder, where we decide on business models that we have seen successful within the digital industries in other countries. And then we start subsidiaries in Vietnam and in the Southeast Asian region, and then we build them from scratch. You see some sample clients on this slide, and we're going to talk more about them later. But the clients we have externally are mostly today inside the standing teams division. And as you can see, it ranges anywhere from global leaders such as Samsung and Lotte to local leaders in Scandinavia such as Furniture Box and Bubble Room. Today the group is some 130 people spread across 5 offices: Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi, Da Nang, Colombo and Stockholm. The two business units of Fram, they are different, but they also fit together and have some very clear synergies in terms of how we want to develop the group. You have the Venture Builder, where we start companies from scratch as subsidiaries, and we help them evolve over the first steps of company building. It's really from scratch, over 24 months, building a company that has a sustainable business model and typically then breaks even after 24 months. Then we have the standing teams, which is already up and running. It has a range of external clients. It has long-term and steady contracts that keep on generating stable cash flows for the group. These cash flows can then be reinvested into the Venture Builder and then constitute the future growth and evolution of Fram. Another synergy that we have between these two business units is that within the standing teams business, we have amazing IT talent. We have strong processes for recruiting amazing IT talent. And that talent can also be used in the Venture Builder to get these companies up and running as soon as possible, to build their first platform as quickly as possible, so that they don't end up waiting to find a solution for how to develop their IT platforms connected to their digital business model. That's one synergy. Another synergy is the kind of corporate infrastructure that is already available in the Fram group. Things like HR, finance, legal. We have central business units for this up and running and well functioning in the Fram group. This is something that the new ventures from the Venture Builder can plug into immediately when they start their business from scratch. This means that they don't waste time and money on trying to solve these problems that are general to any new company that starts up, and that we already have set solutions in place for in the bigger Fram group. So there's another clear synergy between them. I think one important aspect to touch upon when we talk about Fram and our group and our business model is the difference between a venture builder and a venture capital fund. These are two different ways of financing and building companies in the early stages of company development. and they are similar in terms of the stage that they address, but they are very, very different in terms of the methodology of financing these early stage companies and how they are being built. So the traditional model is a venture capital fund. A venture capital fund comes and searches for strong founders with a strong business model, and then they come and ask to invest into that company as a minority shareholder. Typically, the model is something in the vicinity of the fund invests all the capital needed for 1.5 to 2 years of company building for the early stage company. And in exchange for that, the fund gets around 30% of the equity or the shares in that venture. But they act as a minority shareholder, and they are largely external to the management and operation and evolution of that early stage company. In the venture builder model, we start the investment process already before the company is founded. We have an investment committee inside Fram that constantly looks at other jurisdictions that are more evolved than Southeast Asia in terms of the digital industries. We search for business models that are well proven in these geographies. It can be Europe, it can be China, it can be the US. And when we find models that are well proven, that can come to profitability relatively quickly, can show a steady revenue generation, and are not too complex in terms of technology, we will then make an investment decision to proceed to start a company with this business model that we like and that we have seen proven in other countries. We start a subsidiary under Fram with this new business model. We put in the initial funding needed to build that company during the first 24 months or 2 years. We then recruit a strong management team to run and build that company together with the support and coaching from us centrally in Fram. And then the balance is something like Fram retains around 90% of the shares or the equity, and the founder and the management team will have around 10% of the equity in the company. This gives us a position where we can be much more actively involved in the challenges of the company at the early stage. It gives us a position where we can influence the company directly, and where we also retain a much larger part of the equity in the early stage investment. All in all, it gives us a higher likelihood of succeeding in this early stage company building. So to illustrate a little bit more concretely why we think that the venture builder is such a strong model for building early stage companies, we have put together a little bit of a track record of investments and company buildings we have done in the past. Some of them we've done inside Fram, some of them we have done previously in other constellations, but they are still a similar model of company building. First one is Lazada, that we mentioned a little bit in the introduction. That's the e-commerce company that I came to Vietnam in 2012 to start and to build as a CEO from scratch. It's today the largest e-commerce company not only in Vietnam but also in the region. This company was built in the format of a venture builder, and then I had a role as a founder in that company, and we had investors that operated as venture builders. Primarily Rocket Internet, that is probably the most well-known venture builder in the world right now. From the perspective of an early investor into Lazada, so for example, as Rocket Internet, they made 20 times the investment over the 4 to 5 years that they invested as a venture builder into Lazada. So it illustrates the power of the model. Then inside Fram, we have done Pangara as a first case and Intrepid as a second case inside the venture builder. The return on capital and the multiples you see outside or at the side of the slide is from the perspective of Fram as an early investor into these companies and as a venture builder investor into these companies, to the first external funding round with external investors validating a valuation of what had been built inside the company. The same philosophy that we applied to these companies when building them inside Fram, we're today applying to the new batch of ventures that we are currently building of some 10 to 15 companies. It's about making sure that these companies have a very good evolution over the first 24 months with a clear aim to break even after those 24 months. Actually, in the case of Intrepid, we reached that goal already after 15 months, but it illustrates the return on capital that can be achieved with successful company building inside a venture builder. We also mentioned Bima on this slide because that's the background of the CEO of Fram, Max Bergman, who started Bima in Sri Lanka and built that business from scratch to profitability over 5 years.
Hello, my name is Max Bergman. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Fram Group. Welcome to this capital markets presentation. I'm glad you can join. I'm going to talk to you about the standing teams and also the venture portfolio. I will start with the venture portfolio. Since the IPO 2017 in October, we have initiated 9 ventures, where 7 are already operational. This spans different geographies, Sri Lanka and Vietnam, but also multiple industries. And it has come from acquisitions, but also starting from absolute scratch. So it's a mix of several dimensions. Part of the venture builder strength is that we always look at powerful role models where we can always compare and reverse engineers. Our first investment was Carmudi Vietnam that we acquired from the Rocket Internet Group in 2017. It was actually in November, so this marks the anniversary of the acquisition. And since then, we have broadened the business scope. We included inspection and auctions, and financing and insurance income. The second business model we've launched is SmartBuddy, which is an online platform for comparing and selecting insurance and finance products. Here, one of the powerful benchmarks is Money Supermarket, a listed company in the UK. And the progress so far has been great. We've launched multiple insurance partnerships, but also with financing companies. The third business model is Nordic Coder, which is very close to the standing team business. It comes from the need to equip very talented Vietnamese engineers with the right skills to excel in the job market, and it's increasingly competitive. Within 2 months of the start, they already had their first course launch, and right now there are about 4 courses in progress. The fourth business model is Läslusen. It comes from the Swedish term läslus. It's a company that connects top talented tutors with students. So far this market is huge, but it's also largely offline. We are taking this online by connecting tutors with students. Within the first month, we already recorded our first revenue, even at the MVP platform being built. With Läslusen, we're off to a flying start with the first sale recorded even within the first month of launching the operation. GiftUp is our sort of fifth business model, where we digitize vouchers, both B2C but also B2B, and it's very related to doing employment benefits, working with banks, and sort of creating an ecosystem of vouchers. Diak Online here in Vietnam is a real estate classified site that we just signed a term sheet with. That will be our sixth business model, and is very closely related to the Carmudi business model, but also in the classified vertical. All right, so let's take a little closer look at the different ventures we have. Carmudi Vietnam was our first venture that we launched with the venture builder. It was acquired by Rocket Internet in 2017. So Carmudi Vietnam is a car classified site selling new and second-hand cars online. The business model is quite simple: volume and advertising revenue. And that's what we invested in. But we also had something bigger in mind. We wanted to broaden the income streams to also include financing, insurance, and also inspection and auction, which is something we just launched in the fourth quarter. And that moves us closer to our role models, which is, for instance, Auto Scout 24. So to summarize, we have completely restarted Cambodia Vietnam, running it at a quarter of the cost base than previously, and we have tripled the revenue the last 2 months of the previous quarter. Nordic Coder is another interesting venture in the Fram family. It's an academy equipping the Vietnamese engineers with the best tools to succeed in the job market. Within the first 2 months of launching Nordic Coder, we managed to not only start the company but also initiate our first course. And right now, in the fourth quarter, we have 4 courses in parallel running. Another very interesting thing about the Nordic Coder model is that we teach both online and offline, and we think that this mix of a sort of a hybrid model gives strength to the model. Nordic Coder model is that we can provide these kind of courses through online and a combination of offline, so you get the classroom experience at the same time the convenience of online. So to summarize, Nordic Coder has signed strategic partnership with some of the most significant players in the digital industry in Vietnam and built a steady base of revenue. SmartBuddy is an online platform that provides insurance and finance products. It helps the customer make better choices and save more money, and really get the best product on the market. Since the launch of SmartBuddy, both in Sri Lanka and in Vietnam, we've added both different partners within finance, within insurance, different products and different payment platforms. Currently, and this is the strength of the platform, is that we are both converting customers online through leads follow-up on the call center, but also from visiting, for instance, small companies. So we really broadened the acquisition channels. So to summarize, SmartBuddy Vietnam has signed deals with the largest players in the financial industry and the insurance industry and accumulated a base of thousands of paying customers.
We put together this net asset value calculation to give you a little bit more detailed sense on what we see as the value of the assets in the group today. This is in line with how most listed investment companies in Sweden would report their net asset value per share. So basically you have an overview here, and if we simplify as a first level, we have 3 main assets in the group. It's the standing team business, it's the venture builder portfolio, and then it's the cash that we have on the balance sheet today. So this net asset value calculation really summarizes the value of those 3 components and then breaks it down per share in the group. And then we come to a net asset value of 101 Swedish krona per share. If we go a little bit further into this calculation, we see the standing team business on top, and the valuation is really built on the expected revenues for next year for the standing team business. And then we apply a valuation multiple based on the sales for 2019. And similar for the venture builder, we have also put together individual revenue expectations for the ventures we have announced and also the ones that is in the pipeline to be announced within this first venture batch that we originally planned the investment that we raised in the IPO and the subsequent private placement during 2018. All of them are also valued based on a revenue multiple, as you can see in the table on the slide. These revenue multiples we have derived from similar companies that are listed on stock markets around the world. So it's similar business models as each of the individual ventures in the portfolio. We have looked at how they are valued based on 2019 revenue, and then we have compiled a peer group, and then we have an average multiple for that peer group, and we have applied to the individual ventures. That's how we arrive at a specific value for each of the ventures in the portfolio that are later summed up to the total value or net asset value of the venture portfolio. So the 3 components together, you can see that you have around 30 million Swedish krona of revenue expected for the standing teams business for 2019. That's around 50% growth target. Then you have a total revenue target for the venture portfolio of around 55 million Swedish krona. And then you see the individual revenue multiples applied based on a peer group of listed companies. And then you also see the share of the total shares in each of these ventures that Fram holds today. And we multiply those to arrive at what value of the individual ventures is attributable to Fram as a group and the shareholders, the public shareholders of Fram. And then we arrive at 101 Swedish krona per share. It should also be mentioned that most of these multiples, peer multiples, come from companies that grow much slower than the growth of the individual ventures inside the venture portfolio of Fram. Of course, on the flip side, they are also much larger companies than the ventures in Fram's portfolio are today as its early stage. The numbers are, as for any fair value calculation, they are indicative, there's estimates, there's judgments in there, and they are unaudited, but it should still give a guidance of what value we see in the current portfolio of assets for the group.
So we talked about Fram's second leg, the most recent one, the venture builder, where we build companies from scratch. But now let's talk about the other part, the standing teams, the stable IT outsourcing arm that we have, and that's been operational for more than 3 years. Standing team has the great foundation to build these companies on, because we already have the IT, the admin, the finance, the HR, and the recruitment services. So it provides sort of the best grow ground for these new ventures. But it's also a business area in itself, and a very important one for us. It's an organically growing, profitable business area that we have. The way we work with clients is that, of course, we like to help clients with projects, but our business model is more to work long-term with standing teams where we find the best developers for the specific task, and we work on 12 months recurring basis. Working on 12 months recurring basis means that developers we hire become framers, as we call them, our employees, but they also become almost like employees of the client, right? So we manage to build a culture here and a long-term commitment, and this is an industry that is sort of experiencing a lot of attrition and people changing jobs quite a lot. So culture is extremely important to build in order to retain talents and also recruit the best and keep the best. So here's a selection of our key clients within e-commerce that Fram has provided e-commerce services to. So they are all market leaders in their respective regions, so it's either globally here in Vietnam or in Scandinavia. What we've done is everything from app development to platform acceleration programs to also online marketing, including SEO work. Here's another selection of key clients, but where we have more worked on SaaS programs, so software as a service, which include HRM programs, both the back end and the front end of it. And these clients are predominantly in Europe, in Germany, and also in Scandinavia. Here we look at the team management team behind the Fram Group, starting with myself, the CEO and the co-founder. Previously, I was the founder and managing director of Bima in Sri Lanka. I spent 5 years there building an insurance micro provider from the ground. Before that, I was part of the founding team and the starting team that launched Zalora in Malaysia, the Zalando version in Asia. Previously, I worked with strategic communications at Brunswick and Stockwell Group, and started my career in banking. As the Chief Operating Officer, we have Mr. Zui. He's also the co-founder of Fram. Zui has about 15 years experience in leading IT organizations here in Vietnam, working both with local clients but also with big multinational companies around the world. We have Stefan Di Rolfo, CFO and Investor Relations responsible, based in Sweden. Stefan comes with an experience in running multiple companies in the south of Sweden as a CFO. Frederick Smith is the Commercial Director of Fram, responsible for the onboarding of clients for the standing teams. Everything from job requirements to finding the candidates and also leading the marketing efforts here at Fram. Fred is a UK national based here in Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, working closely with the developers and the marketing teams. Fred also comes from a very useful background where he was a headhunter in Hong Kong, so he's worked very closely in this market with engineers and matching the best candidates with the best jobs. Finance manager for the Fram Group is Ha, responsible for the ventures for the standing teams, so consolidating all the local operations, both in Sri Lanka, here in Vietnam, and towards the Swedish entity. Ha has a long experience in these kind of similar positions with Scandinavian clients here in Ho Chi Minh. She's a Vietnamese national based here in Ho Chi Minh. Kim Nguyen is the group HR manager, also responsible looking over the ventures and the standing teams, which is about more than 130 people right now. She brings long experience from leading companies here in Vietnam, such as Chotot and also Tiki, which is an e-commerce company here. She's a Vietnamese national based in Ho Chi Minh. So let's take a little closer look at some of the venture founders we have here for the fully operational and fully owned ventures we launched so far. At the top right, we have Carmudi Vietnam founder and CEO Tony Tong, previously head of strategy at Tambor here in Vietnam, a painting company, and also spent 5 years with McKinsey, the global consulting group. Tony has been the CEO and founder now for Carmudi for almost exactly a year. CEO and founder for SmartBody here in Vietnam is Sixten Seedfeldt, Swedish national. Sixten Seedfeldt comes from several strong positions within the big conglomerate ABB. Founder and CEO of SmartBody in Sri Lanka is Nadika Luknat. Nadika comes from a strong background in the leading telecom operator in Sri Lanka, Dialog Axiata, part of the Axiata group. Nadika was responsible for partnership programs, loyalty programs, and also for the microinsurance program. CEO and founder of Nordic Coder is In Lee. In Lee is from Da Nang, where she previously lived and worked with business incubation and also as a financial analyst at the infrastructure investment fund for Da Nang. One of the managing directors of Laszlo is Johannes Nemeth, a Swedish national based here in Vietnam. Previously, Johannes worked as an executive trainee at Tele2, the telecom operator in Sweden. With a similar background, managing director Beata Klein is also from Sweden, also based here in Vietnam, and she also comes from Tele2, where she was previously the executive assistant to the CEO.
We want to take this opportunity to also present each of the individuals in our board of directors in the Fram Group. First, we have myself as the chairman. I have a background from investments within Sevian Capital, an activist investment fund in Northern European companies. Then I was a CEO for a retail company doing both offline retail and online retail in Sweden. After that, I founded Lazada, the e-commerce group in Vietnam, and led that as a CEO during the first 3 years. And today I'm the chairman of Fram Group and the CIO of Endurance Capital, an activist investment fund in Vietnam. Then we have Stina Andersson. She has a background from McKinsey as engagement manager. Later she moved on to Kinnevik, the Swedish listed investment company, also focusing on investing into digital companies. She was the head of strategy at that company. Later she moved on into the publicly listed telco group Tele2, also there heading up strategy. Today she is with the Axel Johnson Group. Then we have Michael Steinbach. Michael has a long track record with Ericsson, focusing on operations in emerging markets. He has led the operations of Ericsson in almost every significant emerging market in the world. I hope I'm not missing any of them, but it's Russia, it's China, it's Brazil, India, Panama, some countries in Eastern Europe as well. Today he's in this region, leading operations in the Indochina region or Southeast Asian region. Previously based in Vietnam, now based in Thailand. Then we have Henrik Quick, which is the second largest investor in Fram. Has a long-standing track record of investing into Swedish growth companies, mostly public listed. He was previously the chairman of Entraction, also the chairman of Trade Doubler. Today he's chairman in Trott Holmen, his own investment company, and also in NetJobs and Net Gaming. So this marks the end of today's capital markets presentation. We are very happy for everybody who has listened in during this presentation. The purpose of this is really to cover all of your questions and considerations about the Fram Group. So we want to make sure that we have really answered all of those questions. And if there's anything we have missed during this presentation, please send us all of your questions to the investor relations email of Fram. And then we will record a separate Q&A session and publish within the coming days, so that we're sure that we have covered all the questions you might have. Thanks a lot for listening.